Welcome back to the Retirement Chef, whipping up wealth with Brian Butler, the CEO and Senior Wealth Advisor for Wealth Standard Financial. Of course, that's out of Houston, Texas there. And Brian, I'm Doug Turnbull, by the way, just so everybody knows. But Brian, this is a big weekend in Texas, and I know you're in Houston, but there was a lot of activity in Austin, okay? I'm based out of Atlanta. My Georgia Bulldogs came to play the Texas Longhorns there and won, by the way. And
that was unfortunate. Right.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't know where the Houston Cougars fit into that whole mess. They're not as football conversation relevant, I suppose.
Oh, yeah. But in our household, we're big UT fans. So.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, that's right. You may have established that at some point before. So, yeah, that was unfortunate. Now, what did you think about the whole trash on the field thing? That was a tough deal when the fans got frustrated with the pass interference call.
Right. It's crazy how things work out in college football. College is its own thing. It's the party animal of all the sports. And so expect the unexpected when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds for sure.
Now, where do you stand on the Arch Manning Quinn Ewers thing? Is that how you pronounce it? Ewers?
Yeah.
Ewers?
Yeah. It seems like Arch. Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable. It seems like Arch is going to get it. And the way it's looking, it's probably going to be Arch. But I think they might do some back and forth. Quinn just came back, so and against a tough opponent, so we'll see.
That was true. It ended up being toward the end. It seemed like, even though it was a big spread, it seemed like it always felt like a close game because the momentum did start switching there toward the end. Now, the other thing that was big in Texas this week, there's probably a ton, everything's big in Texas, but there was also Formula One was racing in Austin too. Now, I know that's a ways down the road from you guys. Were you getting any of the contact fever, if you will, from Formula One being in the Lone Star State?
Actually, no. I hadn't paid that much attention because I think the last couple of weeks I've been in conferences, and I happened to be in that Hill Country area. I was at a conference about retirement in San Antonio, so in the vicinity of Austin. But Formula One is super popular and growing more and more in America. It's popular worldwide, but I think Americans are really jumping on board, knowing some of the names and really getting into it.
Yeah, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz finished 1-2. Ferrari finished there. By the time y'all hear this will be a couple of weeks in arrears, but still, that's a huge thing in Texas, and there's still one more Formula One stop in America here, Las Vegas here in November. So we'll be staying tuned for that. Well, today we're going to do some how-tos and what is, if you will, coming up in these next few episodes. In our past episodes, or very recently, we talked about the recipe for retirement success, and we also talked about expecting or planning for the unexpected. And Brian actually shared a really good anecdote from his life about a hurricane that popped up this summer and the preparations they did and did not take. So be sure and check those past episodes out of Whipping Up Wealth with Brian Butler, the retirement chef here. You can find it on Apple and Spotify. And be sure, if somebody in your world likes that, be sure and flip them that link, and be sure to subscribe yourself, turn on the notifications. Now, today we're going to very simply, it's Q4, so it's time to make some retirement decisions and meet certain deadlines. We're just very simply going to ask Brian what a 401k is from Jump Street and how it's evolved and the relevance of it over the years. So take it away, Brian. Let's hear about 401ks.
Well, the great thing about 401ks is it gives you some options for planning for your retirement and where the income's going to come from. So 401k is an employer-sponsored plan where you are able to save for your retirement in a tax-deferred, most of the time, way, and your employer many times will match those savings for your retirement. So what you're going to gain is tax-deferred growth. So that means that the money's going to grow, but eventually the tax bill is going to come due later in your retirement. Now, it sounds too good to be true because some people would put all their money into the 401k, but the government, of course, limits how much you can put into there. And every year it changes a little bit based on inflation, based on who's in office, and seeing what the political environment is in the tax situation. But every year you're going to be able to put a little bit more away. And the older you are, so once you hit 50, you're able to put even more in. And so what you need to do from a retirement standpoint, and us as financial advisors, we try to calculate what that number is. So some people can max out the $23,000 if you're under 50 years old and the $30,000 if you're over 50. But many people can't max that out. And so how do you fill that gap? And so that's where the planning piece really comes in, whether you can max it out or you can't quite fit it in your budget to do that. We need to figure out what your retirement goals are. So starting with the end in mind allows us to use the 401k as a tool and add that to your retirement recipe. So that's a component of it. Now, within that, you're going to get tax deferred growth, like I said before, but many employers are now offering what they call a Roth option. So the Roth 401k option for some companies is an after-tax model. You're going to put money after tax into it. But the great thing about it is the longer it's in there, it's going to keep growing in most cases. And then you don't have to pay taxes on the distribution. So many people, including myself, think that taxes are going to be higher in the future. And if they are, which one would you rather have? Would you rather pay taxes on the seed or would you rather pay taxes on the harvest?
Yeah.
I want to pay taxes on the seed. The seed is the Roth option because you're able to get that growth. So whenever you retire 10, 20, 30 years from now, you don't have to pay taxes on those funds. But, it just depends on your situation and where you are in retirement.
Well, for sure. And look, if you I'm just going to use a really square number. If there's $100,000 that went into your 401k over a certain amount of years, and then it grows in the market, right, to let's just say 200,000, making up a number, 200,000 when you retire, you're paying taxes not only at a higher rate, but you're also paying taxes right on the 200,000, not on the 100,000 you put in some years ago.
Correct. So whatever you take out, Uncle Sam wants his cut. And so proper planning is key because managing your taxes in retirement, because taxes and healthcare potentially could be the two biggest expenses in your retirement outside of your income. So planning for those are a gap that I see people when they're coming to our office. They just don't think that there are options for them. And there are tons of options with proper planning. And the longer we have to plan, the better. And it's just like when you invest. The longer you have to invest, the better off you're most likely going to be. But many people, many baby boomers, many older Gen X haven't planned properly along the way. So we really need to jump in and figure out the best strategy to get them on track. So that's where the retirement recipes really come in because everybody's a little bit different. The level of risk that you want to take in the 401k, what protections do you have? And then what other benefits do your employers have? So the 401k usually is the tip of the iceberg for many large employers. So you have things like HSAs, you have employee stock ownership programs. You have a lot of different things that can come together that can complement your retirement because the 401k essentially was the replacement for that traditional pension plan. Many people, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s and early 2000s had
I've got an old one lying around. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Had pensions to help them with retirement. And the 401k was to put this back on you rather than on the company. And because of that, many people didn't understand the importance earlier in their lives. But now, as they get closer to retirement, they really see, I probably should have done more into this than I did. And that's where the planning piece comes in. And having a partner to bounce these questions off of is where we come in as financial advisors. We really want to deep dive into how can we help you design the retirement that you really want. And that's where it comes into play.
So if someone has maxed out, and you mentioned that number, $23,000 below age 50, $30,000 above, and I know those numbers will change over the years potentially. If somebody's maxed it out and then there are other things that you could advise them on. They go to wealthstandardfinancial.com. It says it on the site. It's a free strategy session. Before you ever commit, so to speak, to Wealth Standard Financial, you're going to go over a free strategy session. What are some of the things that people can invest in for their retirement if they've maxed out that one, I would say, easy or well-known option, 401k? I mean, there's Roth IRAs, there's other IRAs, but I mean, I'm sure there's just a whole buffet, Chef, of things.
So the great thing is for retirement specific accounts, you have traditional IRAs, you have Roth IRAs that you can contribute to if you meet certain income limits. Then you have your regular taxable accounts. But Each one of those accounts is like an umbrella. Underneath that umbrella, you have things like stocks, bonds, ETFs, real estate. You have a variety of things that can fit into your retirement recipe. Just understanding which umbrella are you playing with and which bucket should you fill first when it comes to retirement. And we do those calculations for you and with you, more importantly, because our targets say you need to save $10,000 a year or $15,000 a year. Is that possible in your current life and budget? And so we want to fit into your budget, understand where you're coming from and what you're committed to from a retirement standpoint, and then fill each one of those buckets, the 401k, the retirement, the IRAs options that you have in your taxable accounts, and then what is it that you want to invest in? What tickles your fancy? So there we go from there. And that's building your whole retirement recipe. And know what's going to happen? That recipe is going to change over time. But that's why we navigate that together.
Yeah, the retirement recipe is not your great-grandma's old recipe for cornbread, all right? You may start with that, but you got to update. Hey, did you become gluten-free during that time or something like that, just as to keep that going? Well, look, people could go to wealthstandardfinancial.com, get that free strategy session. And, Brian, I think do you probably have a table or some kind of graph or something to like plug in numbers and show people the ways different things grow or not, right? And I think that goes a long way because I get overwhelmed just hearing all these options, and I'm not even planning my retirement actively necessarily right now. So I'm sure somebody walks into the office first time with their eyes as big as silver dollars. Right. You have a way to kind of help them take a breath and see things in real time.
Our goal is to simplify this retirement recipe, to really show you what you have, where you are, and then where you could potentially be with a few tweaks. Many people think that it's a complete overhaul and it intimidates them, so they never get started. But most of the time, it's just going to be a few tweaks, a few mindset changes that we help you with, and then you're on that right path. And then from there, it's just working and plugging away. And so chipping away at the mountain. And next thing you know, you're on your way to that tunnel through the mountain to make it to your retirement. And so we just want to be that partner and give you those strategies, help you with the tax strategies, help you with the investments, estate planning. There's a lot of things that go into the mix, but that's where people need to start, is just figuring out what is it I want, what's my budget, and where can I put this money?
But that's a good way to right there and leave that off. So again, Brian has been in this business and banking and financial for 25 years, a financial advisor for 17, and he and his team would love for you to, again, go to wealthstandardfinancial.com for that free strategy session. And those listening on Apple and Spotify can't see your logo right behind you, but I see that WSF, and it looks so futuristic, and I love that. It's a real clever logo, and it just makes me think of the future and planning the future, and whether it's my retirement that's maybe decades further away than some people that are listening that are already in the middle of it. It's important to start planning as soon as possible, right, Brian? Because people have to get their cards in a row, and you don't want to wait too long and realize that you have a bunch of inefficient money or you have it in the wrong plan. So again, Brian, thank you for your time today. I know we're recording here on a Monday. Mondays are tough. It's tough to get in the office, and I'm sure there are a bunch of appointments lined up there and just meetings for your day. So we really appreciate you doing it.
Hey, Doug, it's always great. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Hey, the pleasure's mine and ours, everybody listening too. Thank you all for listening to The Retirement Chef, Whipping Up Wealth with Brian Butler, again, the CEO and Senior Wealth Advisor of Wealth Standard Financial. Thanks to our producer, Daniel Salerson, for stitching this together and sending it out into cyberspace. And we appreciate all of you turning in and look forward to the next episode of The Retirement Chef here coming up soon.
The opinions voiced in The Retirement Chef, Whipping Up Wealth with Brian Butler, are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial, or tax advisor prior to investing. Guests on The Retirement Chef, Whipping Up Wealth are not affiliated with CWM LLC. Investment advisory services offered through CWM LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.